Welcome to Tales Lab, where lying wives and sneaky girlfriends finally get exposed. From girls' trips that never happened to coworkers who were a little too friendly, we break down every red flag, messy receipt, and suspicious text with humor, shock, and just a little bit of petty. Expect wild stories, dramatic reactions, and satisfying karma as the truth comes crashing through the door. If you love relationship tea, plot twists, and seeing players get played, this channel is your new home. Every single chaotic, jaw-dropping, binge-worthy episode. Hit subscribe and never miss a fresh dose of exposed cheating. Don't forget to check our previous stories. Let's get into it. The cruelest thing my wife did was give her lover a key to our house and laugh in my face when I found out. She didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't even pretend it was complicated. She smiled like my pain was a joke she paid for. Here's how it happened. I'm Malcolm Rivers, born and raised in Prince George's County, Maryland, the kind of man who believes a home is sacred. I thought a key meant trust. I learned the hard way that to some people, a key is just access, something to hand out when they're bored with your loyalty. Danielle and I met in Washington, D.C. at a friend's cookout where the music was too loud and the mosquito spray wasn't doing anything. She laughed at my corny jokes like she'd been waiting all day for them. I offered her a plate, and she teased me for arranging the ribs like they were in a museum. "You're the only man I've ever seen organize barbecue," she said. I told her it was a gift and a curse. She smiled, leaned closer, and said, "I like men with order." Back then, that sounded like admiration. Now I hear it differently. Our early days were sweet in a simple, real way. We'd take late walks around National Harbor, splitting pretzels, and people watching like it was sport. Danielle loved to judge strangers' shoes. I loved to pretend I wasn't judging right along with her. One night, a street performer tried to serenade her, and I jokingly stepped between them like a low-budget bodyguard. Danielle laughed so hard she snorted, then blamed the wind. That was the first time I thought, I want this laugh in my life forever. We weren't rich, but we were happy. At least I thought we were building the same thing. When we got married, we didn't do a flashy wedding. We did a clean ceremony in Bowie, surrounded by family, a small choir, and the kind of aunties who will critique your vows like they're Olympic judges. I promised Danielle stability, partnership, and love. She promised me she'd always protect our peace. After the ceremony, she whispered, "We're going to be unstoppable." I believed her so deeply it felt like faith. We moved into a townhouse I'd saved for, and I loved handing her the spare key. It felt symbolic, like we were finally, officially a team. The funny part is I'm not even the jealous type. I'm the type who labels the pantry, makes a spreadsheet for vacation costs, and thinks fun can include comparing paint samples. Danielle used a joke that if I ever cheated, I'd probably schedule it between oil changes. I'd say, absolutely not. I'm too tired to betray anyone. We used to laugh about how different we were. Me steady, her stylish and social. I thought our balance was the point. I worked long hours managing operations for a shipping company in Hyattsville, and Danielle worked in marketing. She loved attention. I loved quiet. We made it work until we didn't. The shift didn't come with fireworks. It came with small disrespect that grew teeth. Danielle started rolling her eyes when I talked. She'd correct me in front of people like I was her little brother. If I suggested a restaurant, she'd say, "Of course you'd pick something boring." I'd laugh it off because I didn't want to be sensitive. But it stung. Then she started shaming me with a sharper edge. "You're safe," she'd say, like it was an insult. "You're predictable." She started dressing up more, going out more, and coming home with that bright, buzzing energy that didn't include me. I tried to fix it the way I fix problems at work, identify the gap, improve the process. I planned date nights, booked a comedy show in D.C., even bought a goofy couples card game because the reviews said it rekindled intimacy. The game's first question was, "What's your partner's love language?" Danielle looked me dead in the face and said, "Silence." I laughed because it sounded like a joke. She didn't. That should have been my warning. Still, I kept trying. I cooked more. I listened more. I swallowed my pride. I didn't know I was feeding a dynamic where she could hurt me and still expect me to serve. Danielle's friends started treating me like the help. At brunch in Silver Spring, one of them, Tasha, asked what I did for a living and then made a face like I said I fold napkins. Danielle didn't defend me. She just sipped her drink and smirked like it was my job to prove myself. Later, I told her it bothered me. She shrugged. You're too grown to need validation. Then she added, besides, you know you're not exciting. That word, exciting, became her favorite weapon. It was never about truth. It was about control. She was training me to accept humiliation as normal. Danielle's mom, Mrs. Brooks, was worse. At family dinners in Bowie, she'd sit across from me and talk like I wasn't there. My daughter needs a man with ambition, she'd say loudly, like ambition was measured in volume. Danielle would laugh, tilting her head like a queen being entertained. One night, Mrs. Brooks asked Danielle, is he still doing that warehouse job? Danielle replied, yes, Mom, Malcolm still loves his boxes. Then she looked at me and said, don't get mad. It's just funny. I smiled with my teeth and felt something in me fold inward. I didn't know it then, but I was grieving my own marriage while still living inside it. The first time I heard the name Marquis Lane, it was casual. Danielle said it like she was mentioning a coworker. Marquis is helping with a project, she told me while scrolling her phone. She was smiling at the screen in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. I asked, helping how? She sighed like I was asking too many questions. Malcolm, please don't start. I hadn't started anything. I wasn't even accusatory. But her defensiveness hit my chest like a shove. After that, Marquis became a shadow that followed us. Always work, always networking, always a quick meeting. And Danielle started guarding her phone like it was a secret diary. I tried to stay rational. I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself trust is a choice, not a feeling. Then little evidence started stacking up. Receipts that didn't match her stories, late nights with no answers, perfume in the car that wasn't hers. When I asked calmly, Danielle would smirk and say, you're not attractive when you're insecure. Or she'd hit me with, you should be grateful I'm still here. Still here, like my marriage was a charity she volunteered for. One night, she said, if you want me to be loyal, try being worth it. I went silent because I didn't trust my voice not to break. The one romantic thing we still had was tradition, Sunday mornings. Danielle loved pancakes, and I made them with too much pride. I'd flip them like I was auditioning for a cooking show. She used to clap sarcastically and call me Chef Malcolm. Sometimes she'd sneak a kiss on my cheek while the coffee brewed. That small affection kept me hoping. One Sunday, I spelled her name in syrup, D-N, before the I collapsed into a blob. She laughed and said, you tried, babe. That was the last truly warm morning we had. After that, even our Sundays felt like a performance she couldn't wait to leave. The day I found out about the key started normal. I got off work early in Hyattsville, grabbed Danielle's favorite iced tea, and drove home thinking maybe I'd surprise her with kindness. I pulled up and saw a car I didn't recognize. Not parked like a visitor, either parked like it belonged. I told myself it was a neighbor, a delivery, anything harmless. Then I watched a tall black man in a crisp jacket walk up to my door and unlock it with a key like he'd done it before. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like gravity changed. He didn't knock. He didn't hesitate. He stepped into my home with ownership in his shoulders. I got out of my car and went inside without making noise, like my body was moving on instinct. The living room smelled like Danielle's candle, the expensive one she saved for special occasions. Marquis stood near our kitchen island, relaxed, scrolling his phone. Danielle appeared from the hallway, fixing her hair, smiling like she'd just finished a fun conversation. When she saw me, she didn't jump. She didn't panic. She smiled wider. I looked at Marquis, then Danielle, then the key ring in his hand. Who is that? I asked, even though I knew. Danielle said, light as air. That's Marquis. Marquis nodded like we were meeting at a work conference. Why does he have a key? My voice came out calm, but my chest was screaming. Danielle leaned back against the counter, amused. Because I gave him one. The words sat in the room like smoke. I stared at her. To our house. She shrugged. Don't be dramatic. It's just a key. I said, that key is our privacy. Our safety. Danielle burst out laughing. Not a nervous laugh. A real laugh, like I'd told the funniest joke of the year. "Listen to you," she said, wiping her eyes. "You sound like someone's grandpa." Then she looked at Marquis and said, "See? I told you he'd act like this." They both smiled like I was entertainment. Something in me broke quietly. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't fight Marquis because I refused to let my pain become a spectacle. I looked at Danielle and said, "Do you hear yourself?" She tilted her head. "Malcolm, you're a background husband. Marquis makes me feel alive. You make me feel employed." That word, employed, was deliberate. She wanted me to feel small, like the only thing I was good for was paying. Marquis smirked like he'd been handed a trophy. Danielle added, "If you're going to sulk, go do it somewhere else. This is exhausting. No remorse. Not even a hint." After that, Danielle stopped pretending. Marquis came and went like he lived there. Sometimes I'd come home and find his shoes by our rug. Danielle would watch my face and smile as if she was testing how much I could take. When I tried to talk about respect, she'd shame me. "You're not a man to me right now," she said once, scrolling her phone. Another time she said, "You're lucky I ever picked you." She liked saying picked, like I was a bargain item. Even her family joined in. Mrs. Brooks told me, if you were better, she wouldn't look elsewhere. Danielle nodded like that was common sense. I started feeling like the guest in my own life. The funny moments didn't stop completely. They just got darker. One evening, I opened the fridge and saw a container labeled Marquis. Danielle had literally labeled his food. I stared at it for a long time, then laughed once, short and bitter, because it was so ridiculous it almost felt like comedy. Danielle walked in and said, "Don't touch his stuff." I said, "His stuff?" She replied, "Yes. Some of us have standards." The way she said standards nearly made me dizzy. Later, I found one of my own containers labeled Malcolm, don't forget. She'd done it as a joke. I stood over the sink and realized I was being bullied in my marriage. Bullying is still bullying when it wears perfume. I tried to lean on my best friend, Jerome, in D.C. We met at a diner, and I told him the basics. Jerome's face tightened with anger on my behalf. "Malcolm, that's not just cheating," he said. "That's humiliation. That's war." I told him I didn't want war. I wanted my dignity. Jerome said, "Then stop asking for permission to be respected." That line stuck. On the way out, the waitress brought our bill and asked if we wanted dessert. Jerome said, "He's already getting served at home." Then he realized what he said and apologized, but I laughed for real that time, because sometimes the only way to survive is to laugh at the absurdity. Even pain needs a breath. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling in my townhouse in Prince George's County and listened to Danielle laugh in the other room while she talked to Marquis on speaker like she wanted me to hear. At 2 a.m., she walked past me and said, "Still awake? You're so emotional." Then she smiled and added, "Try not to cry at work tomorrow." That was her favorite style of cruelty, simple, direct, humiliating. I realized something then. Danielle didn't just want out. She wanted me broken on the way out. She wanted to feel powerful by making me small. I decided she would not get that. Not anymore. I stopped reacting. I stopped questioning. I stopped pleading. Danielle hated it. She wanted tears, arguments, raised voices, anything she could call weak. When I became quiet, she got louder. "Look at you," she said one morning, fixing her earrings. "You're like furniture, just sitting there." I smiled slightly and poured my coffee. She snapped, "What's funny?" I said, "Nothing." She hated not having access to my emotions. The truth was, I had finally chosen strategy over suffering. I started documenting everything. Not to embarrass her publicly, never that. Just to protect myself privately. Receipts, dates, messages, patterns. I treated my life like an audit. I met with an attorney in Washington, D.C. who spoke softly and didn't judge me. She didn't hype me up with revenge fantasies. She just gave me steps. "Don't announce anything," she said. "Don't escalate. Don't give her a scene." I nodded like I was taking instructions at work. I opened a new bank account. I redirected my direct deposit. I froze my credit. I separated what I could separate. I moved anything sentimental out quietly. My late father's watch, my journals, photos, small heirlooms. I did it in small boxes so it wouldn't look like a warning. Danielle was too busy playing with power to notice the power leaving her hands. In the middle of all that, I caught myself remembering the romantic version of us. Like the time we got lost driving to Annapolis and ended up at a tiny ice cream shop. Danielle dared me to try the weirdest flavor on the menu, and I acted brave until it tasted like regret. She laughed so hard she had tears. She wiped my mouth with a napkin like she couldn't help herself. I held on to memories like that for too long because they felt like proof that the real Danielle was somewhere inside the cruel one. But love can't survive on old highlights, and romance doesn't cancel disrespect. I finally understood. You can miss what was and still leave what is. Danielle planned a weekend trip and told me, "Don't be home Friday night." She said it casually, like she was reminding me the trash pickup was on Thursday. No apology, no shame. She wanted me out of my own space so she could enjoy it with Marquis. I nodded like I agreed, then went to work and kept moving. Friday afternoon, I packed a duffel bag. No dramatic suitcase. No crying in the mirror. I walked through the house slowly, like I was saying goodbye to a version of myself that tried too hard. I took my laptop, a folder of paperwork, and a last small box. I locked the door behind me with calm hands. My exit wasn't a performance. I didn't leave a note. I didn't send a long text. I didn't do a final speech because Danielle would have fed on it. Instead, I drove to a quiet place in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I'd already secured a simple apartment. The first night there, the silence felt strange, like my ears were waiting for cruelty. I ordered food, ate on the floor, and laughed at myself because I realized I'd forgotten forks. I used a plastic spoon like a man who'd just escaped a storm. I slept with my phone face down for the first time in months. No waiting for her calls. No bracing for insults. Just sleep. Karma didn't come as lightning from the sky. It came as reality, fast and sharp. Danielle's fantasy had been built on my stability. Without my direct deposit, the soft cushion under her life disappeared. Bills she never looked at became loud. Auto-pay stopped. Late fees stacked. Danielle called me angry, not sad. "So you're really going to be petty?" she snapped. "After everything I put up with from you?" I almost laughed at the audacity. She hadn't put up with me. She'd used me. And now she was furious that I was no longer available for extraction. Her anger confirmed what my heart already knew. She didn't miss me. She missed access. Marquis disappeared right on schedule. Not with a dramatic breakup. Not with tears. He simply became unavailable. Because Marquis didn't love Danielle. He loved the comfort she offered when the lights were always on, the fridge was always full, and the house felt like a reward. The moment it started feeling like responsibility, he vanished. Danielle tried to lure him back with trips and gifts, but gifts don't hit the same when your bank account is begging you to stop. She called me again, voice sharp. "This is your fault," she said. I replied calmly, "No. This is your choice, meeting your consequences." She scoffed and called me cold, like boundaries were cruelty. No remorse. Still none. The key became a symbol of her stupidity. Danielle still had it, but it didn't mean what she thought it meant. A key can open a door, but it can't force peace back into a house you poisoned. She tried to shame me one last time. "You're going to end up alone," she said. "Men like you do." I sat in my quiet apartment in Charlotte, looked at my clean table, my calm space, my steady breath, and realized how wrong she was. Alone isn't a threat. Being disrespected is. Danielle's downfall wasn't public embarrassment. It was private inconvenience, financial pressure, and the empty silence of a home that no longer felt like a prize, just a reminder of what she broke. My comeback was private, personal, and successful in the only way that matters. I got myself back. I started going to the gym early, not to impress anyone, just to feel strong again. I cooked meals and ate them slowly. I rebuilt my routines. I did my work well and got promoted quietly because I could finally focus. I bought myself one small, ridiculous thing, a fancy key holder for my new place. It was a joke to myself, a reminder. Some people would call it petty. I called it healing. I didn't post about it. I didn't announce anything. I just lived. Peace became my new luxury. Here's the moral lesson I wish I learned sooner. Love without respect is a trap, and loyalty to a person who enjoys humiliating you is not strength. It's self-abandonment. A key, a ring, a shared address. None of those things mean commitment if someone has decided your pain is entertainment. When your partner shames you to feel powerful, they're not confused. They're choosing cruelty. And the best revenge isn't a public moment. It's the quiet decision to remove your access, your money, your energy, your attention from someone who treats you like a resource. I didn't want a speech. I want my life back. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.